Welcome to Soulwoven, where every story is crafted to heal, inspire, and lift the spirit. Subscribe to Soulwoven, and let every story remind you, healing begins with connection.
By the time Daniel opened his front door, the rain had turned the street into a river of reflected streetlights. It was the kind of cold, relentless downpour that made even the strongest people look small. That's what he thought anyway, as he saw her, soaked jacket clinging to her shoulders, a duffel bag at her feet, and a little girl, half hidden behind her hip, clutching a stuffed fox like it was the only solid thing left in the world. He almost closed the door again, almost let habit win, the one that told him that other people's crises were not his business, that his job was to keep his own small world quiet and predictable. But then the woman shivered, and the little girl's teeth chattered loud enough to carry over the sound of the storm. "Your porch light was on," the woman said, voice trembling as much as her hands. "I'm sorry, our car died and the shelter downtown is full. They sent us away. We didn't know where else to go." Daniel stared at them, at the rain streaming off the edge of the porch roof, at the way the girl tried to hide and peek at the same time. Somewhere, deep under the layers of grief and careful routine, something cracked. A stranger needed shelter for one night. He thought that's all it would be. He had no idea that opening his door was the first step toward finding the family he was sure he'd lost forever. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. This is the story of how a man who had given up on family opened his door for one stormy night and found home again in the most unexpected way. Daniel Morales was 36 years old and very good at not needing anyone. During the day, he worked as a maintenance supervisor for the school district, driving between buildings with a toolbox in the back of his truck. He fixed leaky faucets, squeaky doors, and the occasional classroom heater that decided to give up on the first cold day of November. In the evenings, he came home to his modest two-bedroom rental, a brick duplex with peeling white trim and a front porch just big enough for an old rocking chair and 2 empty flower pots. The second bedroom door stayed closed. Always. He cooked simple meals for one: grilled cheese, soup from a can, pasta if he remembered to buy sauce. He watched the local news with the volume low. On Fridays, he sanded small blocks of wood down into smooth shapes in the garage, the shavings piling up like light brown snow. Little rituals, quiet, predictable, safe. It had been 3 years since the accident, 3 years since a drunk driver had run a red light and torn his world clean down the middle. His wife, Sophia, and their 5-year-old daughter, Emma, had been on their way back from the grocery store, the car full of cereal and fruit and little pink yogurt cups with cartoon characters on them. They never made it home. People said time healed. Daniel thought time just filled up with more things you didn't talk about. He kept his head down, paid his bills, and tried not to look at playgrounds, or little pink shoes in store windows, or the second bedroom door. So when the knock came that night, sharp, frantic, over the roar of the storm, his first reaction was annoyance. It was almost midnight. He had just turned off the TV. He stood there for several seconds, staring at the door, hoping whoever it was would realize they had the wrong house. The second knock was softer, more desperate. He opened the door. Rain blew in immediately, cold needles against his face. The porch light carved a small circle of yellow in the darkness, enough to show him the woman and the little girl. The woman's dark hair was plastered to her cheeks. Water dripped from the end of her nose. Her jeans clung to her legs, the hems soaked halfway up her shins. The duffel bag at her feet looked heavy, the strap frayed from too many hurried packings. The little girl, maybe 7, he guessed, wore a thin purple jacket and sneakers that squelched when she shifted her weight. Her stuffed fox, one ear bent, was pressed up under her chin. Big brown eyes stared up at him, wide and cautious. "Hey," Daniel said slowly, voice rusty. You okay?" The woman laughed once, a dry, disbelieving sound. "Not really." She pushed wet hair behind her ear. "I'm Lena. This is Mia. Our car broke down a few blocks away. I spent the last hour on hold with roadside assistance just to find out our account was suspended, and when we got to the shelter, they're full. They gave me a number to call in the morning, but that doesn't help tonight. Her lips were bluish at the edges. Mia's fingers were stiff around the fox. Look, Lena added quickly, words tumbling out. I don't mean to scare you. We're not trouble. I just saw your light, and I thought maybe you'd know if there's a motel around here that, I don't know, takes cash without a card on file. I've got enough for a night. He could have told her the truth, that the nearest cheap motel was 3 miles away, and there was no way he was sending a woman and her kid to walk there in this weather. He could have said he didn't know. Closed the door, gone back to his quiet, predictable life. But the rain was dripping off the girl's eyelashes. Her bottom lip trembled as another gust of wind blew under the porch roof. How old is she? Daniel asked. Mia shrank back a little. Lena's hand tightened gently on her shoulder. 7, she said. She's fine. Just cold. Daniel's eyes flicked to the street. He could just make out the shape of a car parked at the curb, hazard lights blinking weakly, water streaming over the windshield. He swallowed. You said the shelter's full? Yeah. Lena's voice cracked on the word. They told me to call first thing in the morning. There's a wait list. We were supposed to stay with a friend, but... She looked away. That fell through. Daniel had spent 3 years avoiding moments exactly like this. Situations with emotional weight and human need. But something about the way Lena stood there, shoulders squared, even though she was shaking, refusing to cry in front of her daughter, tugged at him. Something about the way Mia's small hand clung to the worn fur of the fox, just like Emma used to hold her stuffed rabbit. He heard his own voice before he fully decided. You can stay here, for tonight. Lena's head snapped back toward him. What? Just for tonight, he repeated, almost defensive with his own generosity. I've got a spare room. It's empty. You can get dry, sleep a little. Call the shelter in the morning. Mia peeked out more fully, eyes searching his face. You have hot chocolate? She asked, very quietly. The question hit him right in the chest. He used to keep a box of instant hot chocolate packets in the cupboard for after snowy playtimes, for special nights when Emma had done all her chores. He still bought them sometimes by accident, grabbed them off the shelf on autopilot. One of those unopened boxes sat behind the coffee can right now. Yeah, he said, clearing his throat. Yeah, I do. Lena hesitated. He could see the war in her eyes, pride and fear and bone-deep exhaustion battling it out. I don't want to impose, she murmured. You're not, he lied. It would be an imposition on his carefully constructed life. It would be an intrusion into the silence he had worked so hard to maintain. But he also knew he'd lie awake all night if he sent them back into that storm. It's just one night. Finally, she nodded. Okay, thank you. He stepped back, holding the door open wider. Warm air spilled out onto the porch. Lena picked up the duffel, wincing as she hoisted it over her shoulder. Mia shuffled in first, shoes squeaking, leaving tiny wet footprints on the entryway tile. As Daniel closed the door behind them, cutting off the sound of the storm, he caught a glimpse of the closed second bedroom door down the hallway. The same old ache stirred. One night, he told himself firmly. Just one night. He handed them towels from the linen closet, apologizing for the mismatched colors. Lena smiled faintly. Trust me, we're not picky. The bathroom's down there, he said, pointing. You can, use whatever. There's an extra toothbrush in the cabinet. You're really kind, Lena said, and something in the way she said it made him want to shrug it off, like she wasn't used to being able to say that about anyone. It's nothing, he muttered. I'll, make that hot. Chocolate. In the kitchen, he moved automatically. Pot on the stove. Milk from the fridge instead of water. Habit. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the rain against the windows filled the silence. His gaze fell, as it always did, to the small framed photo on the counter. Sophia laughing at something out of frame, hair whipped by wind, Emma in her lap, cheeks rosy. He turned the frame face down. By the time Lena and Mia reappeared, wrapped in oversized t-shirts and sweatpants he'd dug out of the back of his dresser, the kitchen smelled faintly of cocoa. Mia's hair, dark like her mother's, was brushed into damp waves around her face. She looked smaller now, without the bulky wet jacket. More fragile. He slid a mug across the table to her. Careful, it's hot. She wrapped both hands around it, eyes lighting up as the warmth seeped into her fingers. Thank you, she said, very serious. No problem, kiddo. Lena took her mug with both hands too, like she needed its warmth just as badly. This is really generous, she said quietly. I know you don't know us. We've had a rough few weeks. You don't have to explain, Daniel said quickly. He didn't want her to feel like she owed him her life story in exchange for one night's shelter, but she gave him a searching look. Sometimes saying it out loud helps, she said. He swallowed. He wouldn't know. He had never really said his story out loud, not more than the bare facts required for paperwork and polite small talk. Mia blew on her cocoa, cheeks puffed. We had a place before, she announced. It had a blue door. But Mum said we couldn't stay there anymore because it wasn't safe. So now we're going somewhere new. Mia, Lena warned gently. It's okay, Daniel said. Blue doors are nice. Mia nodded, satisfied with his answer, and took a careful sip. A little moustache of foam clung to her upper lip. Lena's shoulders sagged a fraction, some tension easing. I left a situation, she said carefully. I thought I had somewhere to land, but it turns out people's promises are flexible. The understatement sat heavy between them. You'll call the shelter tomorrow, Daniel said. Get on their list. Yeah. She looked down at her hands, fingers tight around the mug. Sorry, I don't mean to dump this on you. It's just been... She shook her head. Anyway, you don't need to hear all that. He could have let it drop. That was what he usually did when conversations veered anywhere near real emotion. But the way she was holding herself, like a person bracing for impact, made him say, sometimes it helps. Lena's eyes flicked up. There was gratitude there, and surprise. What about you? She asked quietly. You live here alone? He hesitated. The truth felt like an object he had to pick up carefully, afraid of the sharp edges. Yeah, he said. Used to be different. Lena nodded slowly, like she could read between the lines without pushing. Life does that, she murmured. Changes without asking permission. Mia yawned, jaw cracking wide. Her eyes drooped. Okay, kiddo, Lena said softly, smoothing her daughter's hair. We're not going to take over this nice man's kitchen all night. Can you say thank you? Thank you, Mia said again, this time accompanied by a sleepy little wave. Daniel cleared his throat. The spare room's at the end of the hall. There's just the one bed, but the couch pulls out if you'd rather. We'll share, Lena said. She still kicks in her sleep, but I'll risk it. He led them down the hallway, heart thudding a little too fast as they passed the closed door of the other bedroom. He could feel Lena's glance be drawn to it, curious, but she didn't ask. He opened the door to the spare room instead. It was simple. A full-sized bed with a faded blue quilt, a small dresser, and a lamp with a crooked shade. He hadn't used it much, except to dump the occasional box of tools. This is perfect, Lena said. Mia climbed up onto the bed immediately, bouncing once before her mother shot her a look. Sorry, she whispered to Daniel. It's just soft. It's okay, he said. It's made for bouncing. Lena smiled, a real one this time. If you ever need anything fixed, I have a very affordable 7-year-old with a talent for jumping on things. He huffed a laugh. It felt strange in his chest, unfamiliar. Good night, he said, backing toward the door. Bathroom's right out here. If you, need anything, just knock. Good night, Daniel. He closed the door gently behind him and stood in the hallway, listening to the muffled sounds of their voices, the creak of the bed springs as they settled in. The house felt different already, less like a museum and more like something alive. He glanced once at the closed door of Emma's old room. His throat tightened. Just one night, he reminded himself. Tomorrow they'd be gone. His life would go back to quiet and predictable. He turned off the hall light and went to bed. Sleep was a long time coming. Morning came with pale sunlight, leaking around the edges of the curtains and the smell of coffee brewing. For a moment, Daniel forgot why. He sat up too quickly, heart pounding, before the memory of the night before settled into place. The stranger, the child, the storm. Voices drifted faintly down the hallway from the kitchen. He pulled on a t-shirt and sweatpants and padded out. Lena stood at the stove, her hair pulled into a messy bun, Daniel's two big sweatpants cinched around her waist with a belt. She was flipping scrambled eggs with practiced ease. Mia sat at the small table, legs swinging, drawing on a scrap of paper with one of his old ballpoint pens. "Morning," Lena said, glancing over her shoulder. "I hope it's okay. I found eggs in your fridge. You gave us a place to sleep. The least I can do is feed you." "Yeah, that's fine," he said, thrown by the sight of someone else moving comfortably in his kitchen. "Smells good." "You don't eat breakfast normally," Mia observed, studying him with solemn eyes. "Who says?" "Your cereal is dusty," she said matter-of-factly. "Mum says that means someone doesn't use it." Daniel looked at the top of the fridge, where an unopened box of cereal sat. She wasn't wrong. "Maybe I just like dusty cereal," he countered. Mia giggled. The sound sliced through something tight in his chest. Emma used to giggle like that when he pretended the broccoli on her plate was a tiny forest. Lena set plates on the table. Scrambled eggs, toast, a few slices of apple. Simple, but more effort than he usually put in. "There. Sit, both of you." He obeyed automatically, taking his usual seat. Mia scooted her chair closer so her paper wouldn't be in the way of the plates. He caught a glimpse of her drawing, what looked like a house with a crooked roof, a big sun, and 3 stick figures holding hands. 3. He looked away quickly, focusing on his eggs. "So." Lena wrapped her hands around her mug of coffee, as if anchoring herself. "After we eat, I'll call the shelter again. See if anything opened up." Daniel nodded. "I can take a look at your car after too. See if it's something simple." "You don't have to do that," she said. "I like fixing things," he replied. It came out a little harsher than he meant, like a defense. He softened his tone. "It's what I do. Maintenance guy. I'm basically a professional fixer of stubborn pipes and stubborn doorknobs." Mia perked up. "Can you fix my fox's ear?" she asked, lifting the stuffed animal. One ear flopped, the seam loosened. "I might be able to do surgery," he said, "but I'll need some serious operating room staff." She grinned. "I can be the nurse." Lena watched the exchange quietly, a small, careful smile on her lips. After breakfast, Lena's call to the shelter took longer than she'd hoped. Daniel could hear the fragments from where he stood by the window, looking out at the still-soaked street. "Uh-huh, I understand. Yes, we're on the list. No, I don't have family here." When she hung up, she leaned her forehead against the wall for a second before turning back to him. "Nothing," she said. "They said maybe in a week. Maybe." "A week?" Lena shrugged, trying to make it casual and failing. "They're full. Lots of people need help right now." "What about your friend?" he asked. She let out a humorless laugh. "Turns out her boyfriend isn't okay with surprise guests, even if those guests are escaping a situation where someone punched a hole in the wall next to their kid's head." Daniel's stomach clenched. "He hit. Not us," she said quickly. "Not yet. But I grew up in those not yets. I know how fast they turn into It's not that bad, and he's sorry, and it won't happen again. Her jaw tightened. I promise my kid I'd do better than that. He nodded slowly. Respect, heavy and real, settled in his chest. So what now? I find a room to rent. Something cheap. I get more shifts at the diner, or I find a second job. We save. We keep moving forward. You work at a diner? Used to, she corrected. Left my last job when I left him. It's complicated. He considered her. The determination in her voice lined with exhaustion. He thought about her sleeping on his spare bed, about the way Mia had immediately claimed a corner of his table for her drawings. You can stay here, he heard himself say. Lena blinked. What? Until the shelter has space, he said, scrambling to make the idea sound reasonable even as his heart raced. Or until you find a room to rent. It's not fancy, but there's enough space. The school district pays me okay. I can handle the bills. Her eyes widened, then narrowed with caution. I can't just move in, she said slowly. You don't know me. I don't know you. And I can't pay rent right now. I didn't say anything about rent. You're going to let a stranger and her kid live with you for free. He rubbed the back of his neck, keenly aware of how insane it sounded. Not forever, he said. Just until you get on your feet. You can help with groceries or chores or… I make excellent lasagna, she offered faintly. Great, I'm terrible at remembering to eat something that doesn't come out of a box. Mia had been watching the conversation like a tennis match. Does that mean we get to stay? She asked, hope blooming in her voice, pure and bright. Mia, Lena said softly. We don't know yet. We have to think about it. Daniel crouched to be eye level with the girl. Nothing's decided, he said carefully. But you can stay for more than one night, okay? At least a few days. Until your mum figures things out. Mia nodded, absorbing this like a solemn agreement. Okay. Lena studied Daniel's face, searching for something. Why are you doing this? She finally asked. Really? He thought of the closed door down the hall, of the dusty cereal, of the way his house had echoed at night. Because I know what it's like when everything falls apart, he said quietly. And I know how much difference one person can make, or not make. Lena held his gaze for a long moment. Then she exhaled slowly, as if laying down a burden. Okay, she said. A few days. We'll see how it goes. Those few days turned into a rhythm. In the mornings, Daniel left for work early, his thermos full of coffee. Lena had brewed. Mia would stumble out sleepily in mismatched socks to wave at him from the doorway, the stuffed fox tucked under her arm. Bye, Daniel, she'd call. Don't forget to fix stuff. I'll do my best, he'd reply, surprising himself with how much he looked forward to that tiny ritual. Lena spent the days job hunting, making calls from the kitchen table, filling out online applications on her battered phone. She cleaned the house in that efficient way of people who had never had the luxury of leaving a mess for later. She found all the spots Daniel ignored, the streaks on the fridge, the dust on the baseboards, the mysterious stain on the hallway wall he'd stopped seeing. Afternoons, she and Mia walked to the park a few blocks away. Mia came back chattering about the swings and the spinny thing that made her mum say they needed to sit down before they threw up. In the evenings, they made dinner together. The first night, Lena taught him how to make a simple chicken stew that made the whole house smell like thyme and garlic. The second night, he introduced them to his specialty, grilled cheese with an embarrassing amount of butter. You're trying to give me a heart attack, Lena joked, wiping a smear of cheese from Mia's chin. Hey, if you don't have grilled cheese once in a while, I'm pretty sure that's what gives you a heart attack, he replied. They fell into easy patterns. Lena washed dishes while Daniel dried. Mia's drawings migrated from loose scraps of paper on the table to the refrigerator, held up by mismatched magnets. Every night, another picture appeared. A house with a tree, 3 stick figures, a fox, sometimes a dog she seemed determined to manifest from thin air. One evening, as Daniel rummaged in the hallway closet for an extra blanket, Mia wandered closer to the closed second bedroom door. "What's in there?" she asked, pointing. He froze. The door was plain white, nothing special, but it might as well have been a vault. "Storage," he said quickly. "Oh." She tilted her head, considering. "Is it messy?" "Mum says if I don't clean my room, I'll get lost in the mess and the dust bunnies will make me their queen." Despite himself, he smiled. Something like that. She nodded, as if this made perfect sense, and moved on, humming to herself. That night, sleep refused to come. The house was quiet except for the occasional creak and the distant hum of traffic. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the door. He hadn't set foot in Emma's room since the week after the funeral, when he'd gone in to close the curtains and couldn't bring himself to open them again. Everything inside was frozen in time. The tiny bed with its rainbow comforter, the bookshelf with its row of dog-eared storybooks, the wooden bird on the windowsill. The bird had been his project once. A small, hand-carved songbird, wings half spread. He had spent hours with sandpaper and carving tools, smoothing its edges. Emma used to stand next to him in the garage, watching with big eyes. "Is it going to fly, Daddy?" "It flies up here," he'd told her, tapping her forehead gently. Now, with Mia's laughter echoing faintly from down the hall, the thought of that bird sitting alone in the dark felt wrong. The next afternoon, while Lena and Mia were at the park, he unlocked the door. Dust motes danced in the sliver of light as it swung open. The smell hit him first, stale air and faint traces of bubblegum shampoo. His breath caught. His hand tightened around the doorknob hard enough to make his knuckles ache. He forced himself to step inside. One step, then another. The wooden bird sat on the windowsill, right where he'd left it. Its smooth surface caught the dim light. He picked it up, thumb tracing the familiar grooves. Memories flooded in. Emma's small fingers touching the bird's beak, Sophia laughing at his meticulous attention to detail. "You going to start a side business?" she'd teased. "Daniel's Discount Aviary?" He exhaled shakily. When Lena and Mia returned, cheeks pink from the cold, they found the wooden bird on the living room shelf. Mia's eyes went immediately to it. "Whoa," she breathed. "Can I touch it?" "Careful," Daniel said automatically. "It's fragile." She stroked its back with one small finger, reverent. "Did you buy it?" "No," he said quietly. "I made it. For my daughter." Lena looked at him sharply, surprise and understanding flickering across her face. "You have a daughter?" "Had," he corrected softly. The word tasted like ashes. "Her name was Emma. She and her mum died in a car accident. A while ago." Silence settled over the room. Mia's hand stilled on the bird. "I'm sorry," Lena said, the words simple, but filled with genuine weight. "Yeah," he said. "Me too." Mia looked up at him, brow furrowed. "Does it still hurt?" she asked, blunt in the way only children could be. "Yes," he said after a moment. "But it hurts. Different now. Softer. Most days." She considered this, then nodded, as if filing it away as important information about how the world worked. "I can take care of the bird," she offered. "If you want." He swallowed past the sudden tightness in his throat. "Yeah," he said. "I'd like that." From then on, Mia made a point of greeting the bird every morning. "Hi, bird," she'd say, patting its head. "We're going to the park. Don't miss us too much." Daniel found himself talking more in the evenings. Not all at once, not in a big dramatic confession, but in pieces. He told Lena about working nights while Sophia went to nursing school, about building Emma a treehouse that never got finished because there was always one more shift, one more bill. "I was at work when it happened," he said one night, staring at the steam rising from his mug of tea. "I spent an hour fixing a boiler that didn't want to cooperate, and while I was doing that, They died. I should have been with them. You loved them, Lena said gently. That's where you should have been. Where you were. With them. You did your best with what you had. He shook his head. My best wasn't enough. Lena's eyes grew distant. I used to tell myself the same thing, she said quietly. About staying in a relationship that scared me because I didn't have money, or family, or options. I thought if I just tried harder, if I just loved him more, he'd stop being angry. But some things aren't about how hard we try. She met his gaze, steady. Sometimes the bravest thing we do is accept that our best couldn't fix someone else, or change fate. And then we try again anyway, with ourselves. Her words settled in him like a stone in a lake, ripples spreading outwards slowly. He noticed small things about her too. The way she double-checked the locks every night, fingers lingering on the deadbolt. The way loud noises made her flinch, eyes darting automatically toward the door. The way she apologized too quickly for taking up space. Mia, on the other hand, adapted fast. Children often did. Within a week, she had claimed one of the kitchen drawers for her important art supplies. Broken crayons, dull pencils, and a stack of paper Daniel brought home from a school supply closet with permission. She started humming little songs to herself while she drew, making up lyrics about foxes and birds and the squeaky faucet that Mr. Daniel needs to fix. He did fix that faucet. And the loose floorboard in the hallway that had tripped her on day 3. And the cabinet door that had been hanging slightly crooked for months. It was easier somehow to fix the house when there were people in it. One Friday night, after a particularly long week, Lena announced that they were starting a new tradition. Friday movie night, she declared, hands on her hips. Non-negotiable. We all sit on the couch, we pick something to watch, and we eat popcorn for dinner. Popcorn isn't dinner, Daniel protested weakly. It is tonight, she said firmly. We've had enough seriousness to last us a while. They ended up watching an animated movie about a girl who could talk to animals. Mia laughed so hard at one joke she nearly fell off the couch. At one point, without really thinking about it, she leaned against Daniel's side, her head resting on his arm. His whole body went still. Lena's eyes flicked toward them, then back to the screen. She said nothing. After a moment, Daniel let himself relax, just a little. He focused on the warmth of Mia's small weight, and the smell of butter and salt, and Lena's quiet laughter. For the first time in a long time, the ache in his chest wasn't just pain. There was something else there too. Something like possibility. Weeks turned into a month. Lena picked up part-time hours at a local diner, the manager willing to give her a shot after hearing how hard she'd been looking. Daniel adjusted his work schedule where he could, picking up early or late shifts so he could be home to watch Mia when needed. They settled into a strange, gentle partnership. Not quite a couple, not quite roommates. Something in between. Something careful. But with every shared meal, every late-night conversation at the kitchen table, every time Mia ran to the door when he came home shouting, "You're back!" the walls Daniel had built around his heart thinned, and that was exactly what terrified him. Spring crept in slowly. The bare branches outside the kitchen window sprouted tiny green buds. The air lost its biting edge. One Saturday, Daniel brought home a small flat of tomato seedlings and a bag of soil. "What are those?" Mia asked, peering into the cardboard tray. "Tomatoes," he said. "Figured we could try a garden. My dad always said food tastes better when you grow it yourself." "We're going to have tomatoes," she squealed, as if he'd promised her a pony. "Can I help? Can I name them?" "Name them?" She nodded emphatically. "If you talk to plants, they grow better. Mum says so. Right, Mum?" Lena, who was wiping down the countertop, smiled. "I said someone on the internet says that, and I'm willing to try anything that might keep my basil alive." "See?" Mia turned back to the seedlings. "This one is Tony. This one is Lola. This one is Sir Squishy Tomato. Daniel uncapped the bag of soil, the rich, earthy smell rising up. Sir Squishy, huh? He's a knight, she explained seriously, guarding the garden. They spent the afternoon on the small patch of dirt behind the duplex, digging holes and carefully tucking the seedlings into their new home. Mia chattered non-stop, narrating each plant's personality. Lena sat on the back steps, sipping iced tea, watching them with a look on her face Daniel couldn't quite read. Soft, wistful, a little stunned. At one point, as Mia marched around the garden, inspecting the troops, Lena murmured, more to herself than to him. She hasn't had a backyard since she was 3. Daniel glanced at her. You grew up with one? Sometimes. She smiled ruefully. Depends which apartment we were in that month. My mum liked to move when things got too hard. New place, new start. I used to think she was brave. Now I think she was just tired of seeing the same problems in the same walls. He thought about his own tendency to cling to the familiar, even when it hurt. Maybe both can be true, he said. She watched Mia twirl with the stuffed fox in one hand and a small garden spade in the other. Maybe. The longer they lived together, the more their daily lives wove into a single fabric. There were good moments. Mia running into their room one Sunday morning with a crumpled piece of paper announcing Family Pancake Day in shaky letters, complete with a drawing of 3 stick figures holding spatulas. Daniel's experimental blueberry pancakes that turned out surprisingly edible. Lena's delighted laughter when Mia managed to flip one without dropping it on the floor. There were harder moments too. One evening, Lena came home from the diner looking pale and tight-lipped. She set her bag on the counter with more force than necessary. You okay? Daniel asked. She hesitated, then sighed. A customer recognized me, she said. From before. Think he used to hang around the auto shop where she broke off. He asked how Cal was doing, said he hadn't seen us around. I just smiled and said we'd moved. But if he mentions it to the wrong person... Daniel's shoulders tensed. Do you think he'll tell him? She ran a shaking hand through her hair. I don't know. Maybe. Cal has a way of making people think they owe him things. That night, she checked the locks 3 times instead of 2. Daniel moved an old baseball bat from the hall closet to under his bed, just in case. Mia sensed the tension, even if she didn't understand it. She stayed closer to them, wandering less far in the park, her drawings featuring more guard animals, lions, wolves, and Sir Squishy Tomato now sporting a doodled sword. One rainy afternoon, a few weeks later, the fear became real. Daniel was in the living room, stretching out his sore back on the couch after a long shift, while Mia constructed a precarious tower out of couch cushions and declared it a castle. Lena was in the kitchen, humming as she stirred a pot of sauce. The knock on the door was sharp, insistent. Something in the sound made Daniel's heart lurch. It wasn't the tentative tap of a neighbor or the polite rhythm of a delivery person. It was claiming. He glanced at Lena. All color had drained from her face. Her hand tightened around the spoon, knuckles white. Stay here, he said quietly. He approached the door, every muscle in his body humming with tension. He opened it just a crack, chains still on. A man stood on the porch, tall and broad-shouldered, his hair buzzed short. He wore a leather jacket despite the warm weather. There was a familiarity in his stance, in the way his eyes swept the hallway behind Daniel without conviction that he had a right to. Can I help you? Daniel asked, voice flat. I'm looking for Lena, the man said. His gaze snapped back to Daniel's face, hard. I heard she's been staying around here. Someone said they saw her at the diner. Daniel's grip tightened on the door. Who are you? I'm her fiancé. The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Name's Cal. We had a misunderstanding. She took off with my kid. I'm just trying to bring my family back. Together. Behind Daniel, he heard Lena suck in a breath. Mia's castle building stopped mid-stack. "Mom?" Mia's voice trembled. Cal's eyes shifted over Daniel's shoulder, trying to see. "Mimi?" he called, his tone suddenly honey-sweet. "Baby, Daddy's here. Time to come home." Every instinct in Daniel screamed that this man shouldn't be anywhere near them. He thought of the invisible cracks in the walls Lena had described, the holes punched next to people's heads, the not-yets. "She doesn't want to see you," Daniel said, surprising himself with the firmness in his own voice. "You need to leave." Cal's face hardened. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who lives here," Daniel replied, "and someone who won't let you scare a child in my house." "She's my child," Cal snapped. "Not yours. Not some stranger's." Lena stepped into view then, shoulders squared, trembling but resolute. "I told you it was over," she said, voice steadier than her hands. "You don't get to show up wherever I go. You don't get to do this anymore." Cal's gaze flicked between her and Daniel, something ugly twisting in his expression. "So this is it?" he sneered. "You find some sad widower to play house with, and I'm just supposed to." "Enough," Lena cut in, shaking. "You had your chances. All of them. This is me protecting our daughter. You're poisoning her against me. I'm keeping her safe from you." Mia had crept closer, clutching her fox so tightly it seemed strained. Her eyes were huge, darting between the adults. "Mom," she whispered. "Are we in trouble?" Lena's face crumpled, just for a second, before she forced herself to be still. She crouched, pulling Mia close. "No," she said firmly. "We are not in trouble. We are safe, okay? We're safe." Daniel stepped more fully between them and Cal, blocking the doorway with his body. His pulse thundered in his ears. "You should go," he said. "Now, or I'm calling the cops." Cal's jaw clenched. For a moment, Daniel thought he might try to force his way in. His stance shifted, weight forward. Then, maybe sensing the line he'd be crossing, he spat on the porch instead. "This isn't over," he snarled. "You can't hide her from me forever." "We're not hiding," Lena said quietly. "We're leaving." He snorted, turned, and stomped down the steps, muttering curses under his breath. The sound of his car peeling away burned itself into Daniel's memory. When the street was silent again, Daniel closed the door, locking it with careful precision. He turned back to find Lena shaking, tears streaking down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't think he'd find me so fast. I've just made everything dangerous." "Hey," he said, stepping closer. "Look at me." She lifted her eyes, guilt and fear swirling in them. "You didn't make him come here," Daniel said. "He chose that. You chose to leave, to protect Mia. That's not something you apologize for." She let out a ragged breath. "He's not going to stop," she said. "I know him. He'll push and push until—" "Then we push back," Daniel said. "Legally. We document this. We call a lawyer, a shelter advocate. You said you talked to someone before, right? About leaving." She nodded, wiping her cheeks. "There's a woman at the shelter hotline, Rosa. She said if he showed up or tried to take Mia, I should call." "Then that's what we do." Mia's small voice cut in, wavering. "Is he going to take me away?" Lena gathered her daughter against her chest. "No," she said fiercely. "No, baby. I won't let that happen. I promise." Promises. Daniel had made so few, post-accident. He had been afraid of them, afraid that any vow might call down disaster. But as he watched Lena hold Mia, watched the fear slowly give way to determination in her face, something inside him shifted. "You're not doing this alone," he heard himself say. "We'll figure it out. Together." The word hung between them. Together. Over the next weeks, together became a strategy. Lena called Rosa at the shelter and got connected with a legal aid clinic. Daniel took time off work to drive them to appointments, sitting in waiting rooms, pretending to read old magazines while his mind raced. They filed for a protective order, They documented every call from unknown numbers, every vague text. They made a safety plan, just in case. It was terrifying. It was also, in its own way, empowering. For Lena, having someone physically beside her in those offices meant she didn't feel like a small boat in a storm. For Daniel, using his strength and time to protect instead of just fix pipes gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Mia picked up on the whispered word, court, and drew a picture of a stern-looking tomato plant in a judge's wig. She labelled it Judge Squishy and taped it to the fridge. The three of them laughed until their eyes watered. The absurdity loosened some of the fear's grip. In the middle of all that, life continued. Mia lost her first tooth while biting into an apple at breakfast. She stared at the tiny tooth in her palm, eyes huge. "It's okay," Daniel said, swallowing an absurd surge of panic. "That's supposed to happen." "It means you're growing up," Lena added. "You'll get a new one, bigger and stronger." "Does the tooth fairy know our new address?" Mia asked gravely. "She keeps track," Daniel assured her. That night, he stumbled his way through his first tooth fairy duty, slipping a crumpled $5 bill under her pillow and nearly knocking the fox to the floor in the process. The next morning, Mia ran into the kitchen, triumphant. "She found me!" Lena and Daniel exchanged a look over her head, part amusement, part something softer. Later, when Mia was at school, Lena found Daniel standing in the doorway of Emma's old room again. They had begun, slowly, to clear it out. It started with a box of clothes to donate to a women's shelter, then a stack of books they moved to the living room. "You don't have to rush," she said quietly. "I know." He lifted a small toy truck from a shelf, turning it over in his hands. "It's weird. Part of me feels like I'm betraying her." "Emma." He nodded. "Do you think she'd want you to live in a house that hurts you every time you look at it?" Lena asked gently. "Or one where you can remember her and still breathe?" He stared at the truck. "She would have loved Mia," he said, voice thick. "I know Mia loves her bird," Lena replied. "She talks to it like it's a friend. She'll say, 'Emma's bird, we're going to the park now. Protect the house, okay?'" He closed his eyes for a moment. Tears pricked. "Is it weird," he said slowly, "that it makes me happy and sad at the same time?" Lena stepped closer, not touching him, but close enough that he could feel her presence like a warmth at his side. "No," she said. "I think that's what healing feels like, happy and sad, all braided together." He let out a shaky breath. "I'm scared," he admitted, "of getting close, of losing, again." She nodded. "Me too," she said. "Every time I watch you and Mia plant tomatoes or build cushion castles, part of me is terrified that it's going to be taken away, that I'll wake up and it'll just be me in a bag again." He looked at her. "And yet you're still here." "And yet," she agreed, a hint of a smile at the corner of her mouth, "sometimes we choose to be brave and scared at the same time." It wasn't a declaration of love, not yet, but it was something just as fragile and powerful, an admission that they both cared enough to be afraid. As the tomato plants grew, so did their bond. Mia started calling the back bedroom "my room," without seeming to notice the shift. Daniel and Lena didn't correct her. Instead, they painted the walls a soft yellow one Saturday, while Mia supervised from a stool, wearing one of Daniel's old t-shirts as a smock. "Make sure you get the corners," she instructed, hands on her hips. "Yes, boss," Daniel said, dipping his roller again. By early summer, the tomatoes were ripe, the garden a tangle of green. Mia carefully picked the first red fruit and held it up like a trophy. "This one is Judge Squishy," she declared. "He says we did a good job." They sliced the tomato and ate it with salt and a little olive oil at the kitchen table, juice dripping onto their fingers. "This is the best tomato I've ever had," Lena said. "It's the only tomato you've ever grown," Daniel pointed out. "Exactly," she replied. 100% success rate." Mia licked her fingers. We made it, she said proudly. Together. The word landed differently now. Less fragile. More like a statement of fact. And yet, just when things felt almost stable, another change loomed on the horizon. One hot afternoon, as cicadas buzzed in the trees, an envelope arrived in the mail with an official-looking seal. Lena turned it over in her hands, her name printed neatly on the front. Legal Aid Clinic, she murmured, recognition flickering. Daniel watched as she slid her finger under the flap and unfolded the papers inside. Her eyes scanned the lines, moving faster, then slowing. She let out a long breath. The protective order's been approved, she said. The custody agreement too. He can't come near us, and any visitation has to be supervised at a center, if he even tries. Mia, who had been coloring at the table, looked up. Does that mean he can't take me? She asked. Lena's eyes shone. It means the law is on our side now, she said. It means we're safer. Mia absorbed this slowly, then nodded. Good, she said firmly. I like it here. Daniel felt something unknot in his chest. Relief, protection, and under it, a question he had been afraid to put into words. That night, after Mia was asleep, Fox tucked under one arm, the wooden bird positioned carefully on her dresser L as guard. Daniel and Lena sat on the back steps, watching lightning bugs wink in the dark yard. The air smelled like tomatoes and cut grass. The house behind them glowed softly through the windows. So, Daniel said, picking at a splinter in the step. What now? Lena tilted her head. What do you mean? The plan was temporary, he said, until the shelter, or until you got on your feet. You've got legal protection now, a job. You could find your own place. The words tasted like cardboard. He hated them immediately. She was silent for a moment. Do you want me to? She asked quietly. He turned to look at her. Her face was shadowed, but he could see the tension in her jaw, the way her hands twisted in her lap. No, he said. The truth pulled from somewhere deep. I don't. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh, almost a sob. Me either, she admitted. But I didn't want to assume. I didn't want to be the girl who moved in with the guy who pitied her and then forgot to leave. I don't pity you, he said. I admire you, and I like having you here. Both of you. She studied him, eyes searching. Daniel, she said softly, what are we? He swallowed. The question had been circling them for weeks. I don't know exactly, he said slowly. But I know that when I imagine this house without your coffee in the mornings, or Mia's drawings on the fridge, or you humming in the kitchen, it feels wrong, empty, like going back to that would be losing something. Again. Her eyes shimmered. When I imagine leaving, she said, I see another tiny apartment with thin walls and a couch that smells like strangers. I see me working double shifts and Mia sleeping on a pull-out bed while I tell her, just a little longer, baby. We'll find home. She paused, and then I look at her asleep in that yellow room with her fox and her bird and her tomato garden outside. And I think, what if home is already here? Silence settled, thick with possibility. Lena, he said, his voice unsteady. I'm scared of promising things. Last time I built a future in my head, it disappeared overnight. I don't ever want to take anything for granted again. I know, she said. I'm scared too. Last time I trusted a man to be my safe place. He turned into the storm instead. He moved a little closer, their shoulders almost touching. What if, he said slowly, we don't promise forever tonight? What if we just choose each other today, and then tomorrow, and the next day, one small promise at a time? What kind of promise? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. That we don't run when it gets hard, he said. That we talk, that we keep Mia's world as steady as we can, that we show up for tomato emergencies and science projects and bad dreams. She laughed softly, tears slipping free. Those are big little promises. I'm not good at grand gestures, he admitted, but I can build things, fix things. I can be here. I want to be here. Her hand found his in the dark, fingers tentative at first, then twining with his. His heart lurched, and then settled into a new rhythm. Then be here, she said. For us. With us. He squeezed her hand. Can I show you something? She nodded. He stood, pulling her up gently, and led her inside. The house was quiet except for the soft whir of the fridge and the distant hum of a neighbour's TV. He walked past the living room, past the yellow room where Mia slept, to the door at the end of the hall, Emma's old room. He hesitated, then opened it. The room was different now. They had been working on it in small pieces over the last month, but this was the first time he saw it through her eyes. The rainbow comforter was gone, replaced by a simple quilt. The shelves held some of Emma's old books mixed with new ones. A small desk stood under the window, ready for homework or drawings. On the wall, he had hung a framed photo of a bird in flight. On the dresser, next to a lamp with a soft shade, sat the wooden bird and the stuffed fox side by side. This room, Lena whispered. I thought, he said, throat tight. Maybe if you two stayed, if you wanted to, it could be Mia's room, not just a borrowed bed, a real room, for her. And for you, well, we can rearrange the other bedroom, make space. I'm not good with the whole move in with me speech. He let out a shaky laugh. But that's what this is, I guess. Tears spilled freely down her cheeks now. Daniel, she breathed. Are you sure? No, he said honestly. I'm not sure about anything in the big cosmic sense, but I'm sure about how it feels when you're here, when Mia runs down the hall, when the house smells like you're cooking, when I hear you singing terribly off-key in the shower. Hey, she protested weakly. You're a menace, he said softly, and I love it. I love you. Both of you. I didn't think I'd ever be able to say that again, but I do. I love you. The words hung there, raw and real. Lena covered her mouth with one hand, shoulders shaking. I love you too, she whispered. I've been trying not to, because I didn't want to need anyone again. But somewhere between the hot chocolate and Judge Squishy and you holding my hand in that courthouse waiting room, you became home. He felt a sob catch in his chest, part grief, part relief, part joy. I'll never be able to replace what you lost, she said. I wouldn't want to, but if you'll let us, Mia and I, we'd like to be part of what comes next. He stepped forward, pulling her gently into his arms. She came willingly, fitting against him as if she'd always been meant to. They stood there, in the doorway of a room that had once held nothing but ghosts, and let themselves feel the weight of what they were choosing. After a while, a sleepy voice floated down the hallway. Mum, Daniel. They pulled apart slightly as Mia appeared, hair mussed, fox dangling from one hand. She blinked at them, then at the room. Why are you in my room? She asked, as if it were obvious. Lena laughed through her tears. Is it your room now? Mia looked around, eyes catching on the fox and bird together on the dresser. She smiled, slow and sure. Yeah, she said, if we're staying. Daniel knelt so he was eye level with her. If you want to, he said. If you and your mum want to stay, I'd like that. A lot. Mia's face lit up like sunrise. She launched herself forward, wrapping her arms around his neck. Okay, she said into his shoulder. We'll stay. We're a family now. The words sank deep into him. Family, not the one he had lost. A different one, a new one. Chosen. He hugged her back, feeling Lena's hand rest gently on his shoulder. In that moment, with a sleepy child in his arms, and the woman he loved beside him in the doorway of a room that no longer felt like a mausoleum, Daniel understood something. Healing didn't mean forgetting, it meant making space for grief, for love, for second chances, for more than one kind of family. In a small brick duplex with peeling white trim, a man who had once closed every door to his heart opened one on a stormy night and found that sometimes the family we're meant to have doesn't arrive neatly packaged or on our schedule. It shows up shivering on the porch, clutching a stuffed fox, asking for hot chocolate and a place to sleep. If this story reminded you that second chances often look like small, risky acts of kindness, share it with someone who needs the courage to open their own door. Subscribe to Soulwoven for more stories that remind you that home isn't just a place you live, it's the people you choose, again and again, even when you're afraid. Because in the end, love isn't the absence of loss, it's the quiet decision to keep reaching for one another anyway, to plant new gardens in old soil, and to believe that even after everything falls apart, a different, gentler future is still possible.
If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it with someone who might need a little light today. We believe every share sends hope a little farther down the road. Tell us in the comments, what part of this story stayed with you? Your words might be the reminder someone else needs to keep believing in second chances. And if you want more stories like this, stories about love, healing, and the beauty in broken things, make sure to subscribe to Soulwoven.